San Francisco had the bubble burst. The tailspin continued wildly and blindly against the Rockies over the weekend. L.A. was 2.5 out. But last night, the Dodgers dug deep. Todd Zeile hit a pair of home runs. The spirit was back. L.A. found themselves parked back in the race, one that has the earmarks of a nail-biting finish. Posted on the scoreboard. Went to extra innings. Did they lose confidence in him a little bit, or is he the right type of guy for the job tonight as the Dodgers have won one and are trying to get that last winning streak to get back and make the Giants sweat a little bit?
Well, I really think this is a good news, bad news situation. The good news is he's a veteran. He's pitched some big games before. He's a guy that knows how to win the big game. I think the bad news is his confidence has to be shaken a little bit because of what happened in San Francisco last week. So I think it's important for him to get off to a good start. He needs a 1-2-3 inning in the first inning.
The Padres playing spoiler. Remember, they won the West last year. They have a guy who is a Dodger killer, Joey Hamilton, 5-1. He's hit 2 home runs against the Dodgers this year. Plus, they have a guy that kills every pitcher, Tony Gwynn, who is going after his 8th National League batting title. He and the Padres try to wreck the Dodger pennant when we return. A cloudy, very hot day here in the Los Angeles area, downtown, in the middle of the afternoon. Temperature was in the high 90s. It's not been a great temperature for Bruce Bochy and the San Diego Padres, who a year after they win the National League West will end up in the basement. But yet, they relish the role of spoiler, and they take this job very seriously. They play the Dodgers tonight, and of course, they finish up with the Giants. Nextel lineup for the Padres. Craig Brewer and Shipley starts at second base. Steve Dorsal Finley in center field. Tony Gwynn in right. Ken Helmut Caminiti is the third baseman. And Tony, of course, has already tied a career high for hits. And for him, that's saying something, with 218. Wally Absorbine Joyner hitting fifth at first base. Mark Sweeney gets the start in left field, the pinch hitter extraordinaire. John Flaherty, the catcher, hitting seventh. Chris Gomez, the shortstop, eighth. Joey Hamilton, the pitcher, hitting ninth. Going up against the 40-year young knuckleballer for the Dodgers, Tom Cotton Candiotti.
And on the mound, Candiotti, he told me that he's a pitcher that happens to throw a knuckleball. He's not just a knuckleball pitcher. By that, he means he will mix in a few breaking balls, a few curveballs, change-ups, and a few fastballs. But he will not throw the fastball when he's behind in the count. And let's take a look at the defense for the Dodgers. And behind him, it's going to be important tonight. Darren Lewis in left field has really helped their defense. He's added a little more speed there along with Nixon. Now they have a very fast outfield, Nixon and Mondesi. So they have really added a lot to their defense by adding Darren Lewis to left field. Lewis, one of the better center fielders in all of baseball. He's playing left field.
So we're underway at what the Platters would call, Joe, Twilight Time. You remember that? You remember the Platters?
That's one of my favorite tunes.
It may not be one of the favorites for the outfield this year, although with the cloud cover, that twilight setting won't really come into play. You saw in that open, in that game that you did on Sunday night. Right. Otis Nixon was not played here very much. Lost one in the twilight in the late September shadows, but unless the sun breaks through, that won't be a factor.
No, the smog is blocking it out.
Yeah, I said fog, and you meant smog and fog.
Fog in San Francisco.
Yeah. 1 and 2 is Candiotti on Craig Shipley, and the famous palm tree shots of the Hotel California. And that's what Otis would see, and he's actually probably pretty thankful of that. I guess the toughest thing, Joe, in a knuckleballer, and, you know, Candiotti, it's not like he's new and just first on the scene, but yet, here we are, we put the gun on a Randy Johnson and people like that, 95, 98. It's just to sit and wait on this thing, isn't it? Yeah. Is that what you do against a knuckleballer?
Well, there are a couple of different schools of how you attack a knuckleball. A lot of hitters believe you wait and try to catch it at the last moment. Other hitters believe that you hit it out in front of the plate, take some of the break out. I personally believe you should stand closer to the plate and closer to the pitcher. Move closer to him. That makes the knuckleball a little more familiar to you, more like a fastball.
That was a slower than usual. Look at that, 56 miles an hour. I mean, that's not even the speed limit, Joe.
Well, let's take a look at this pitch. And you can see, I mean, that's just a very slow knuckleball. It's more like a curveball if you want to know the truth about it. It reacts like a curveball. It has a big hump in it, and then it goes straight down. Shipley completely fooled by it.
Shipley will sit, and that'll bring up Steve Finley.
Finley's had very good success against Candiotti. He hit 5 home runs.
We should point out right now that the big lot guys in the Padre lineup, Finley, Gwynn, Caminiti, and Joyner, the next 4 guys you'll see, all have had great success. Now, a lot of times I throw these out the window, these stats, but Candiotti's been around a long time. He's faced the Padres many times. You mentioned the 5 home runs by Finley, and he's hitting .340. Tony Gwynn is hitting .405 against Candiotti. Caminiti .361, Joyner .350. So keep that in mind when you watch the heart of the Padre order tonight. And Finley sends this one down the right field line. Back it goes. Back, back, back. Gone.
Well, now he has 6 home runs.
As we said, the heart of the order has really tattooed Candiotti, and home run number 28 on the year for Finley. RBI number 91, and the Padres have taken the 1-0 lead. The ball gets thrown back a la Wrigley Field, but it's not going to change the score.
Well, that's a knuckleball that starts to break, and he catches it before he gets it full break. See, that's what we're talking about. Finley standing in the forward half of the batter's box, got that ball before it got his complete break, and was able to hit the ball out of the ballpark.
So here is Tony Gwynn on the verge of winning his 4th straight National League batting title, on the verge of winning his 8th batting championship in the National League, which would tie Honus Wagner for a record. Gwynn inside out, going back is Gagne, not going to get it. Base hit for Tony Gwynn, who came into the day hitting .373. He knows that Larry Walker in the Colorado game against San Francisco went 1 for 4, and Walker ends his day at .366. So Gwynn, who made up all that ground over the weekend, going 11 for 18 against the Giants, continues his hot-hitting way.
Well, he doesn't. This is not a typical Tony Gwynn base hit. A little bloop that finds the area between Darren Lewis and Greg Gagne. He hit it off the 5th, and he just blooped it over shortstop. And now you see, now he has an 8-point lead at this moment. Of course, he has at least three more at-bats in this ball game.
So that brings up last year's MVP, Ken Caminiti. Caminiti, of course, playing hurt for much of the first part of the year. And those numbers anybody would take. Look at 25, 87, and 291. And then, do you remember his second half last year, Joe?
Well, I remember how good it was. I don't remember exact
numbers. Well, here's what it is.
It was great.
This is just a half season, which we forget. 28 homers, 81 RBIs, 360. That's just after the All-Star break last year. So his numbers this year are very strong. But compared to last year, well, of course, it's hard to duplicate last year. That's
You're right.
not fair to anybody. This year, of course, pre-break, he was hurting. And he has come on again to post a big second half. But unfortunately for him, the Padres never really turned the corner. And they were rarely out of the basement once they got in there toward the end of April. Not wide of first again.
And that's what I was talking about with Candiotti. He's thrown several fastballs and sliders after Finley hit the home run. He threw a slider to Tony Gwynn to start the at-bat. That was a fastball inside, or a cut fastball to Caminiti.
Hit pretty well to right field, coming on is Mondesi. Not going to get there. Going to third is Gwynn. Mondesi with a gun. Not in time. Well, got to die. Actually thought he got a better bat on the ball from our vantage point. But again, Candiotti's given up a couple of quails and a long home run.
And that definitely, you're right, that was more like Tony Gwynn's. Only Caminiti, I think, is a little stronger, so it looked a little better.
He hit, and the ball hit was a knuckleball hit.
Well, you see this throw by Mondesi. I'm telling you what, this is a magnificent throw, right on the money. I mean, Gwynn just barely gets there before the throw. And Tony was hustling all the way. If that would have been a routine single to right, he's out. But because it died out there, Mondesi had to come and get it. So Gwynn hustles all the way around the third. And this is what I said before. This is one of the problems the Dodgers face, getting behind early.
Wally Joyner swings at the first pitch, lofts it to left center field. Lewis and Nixon over. Lewis makes the catch. Gwynn blocks. Throw is one hop to Piazza. And all the runners stay.
And that was a smart play by the outfielders, Nixon and Lewis. Lewis has a stronger arm, so they let him take the fly ball, instead of Nixon taking it with a bad angle. So they played that very smartly out there in the outfield on that play. Darren Lewis has a good throwing arm, and as I said before, a very good outfielder.
One of the many second-half acquisitions by general manager Fred Clare, with Eric Young at second base, Nixon in center field, Lewis in left. Acquisitions that seemed to turn the tide against what the Giants were doing with the trade, but at least right now it doesn't seem like it's turned it enough. This is Mark Sweeney, who has been the best pinch hitter in the National League this year. Gets under this one, gets a rare start in left field. Mondesi calls off Young, and so two runners are stranded. It could have been worse, but Steve Finley went deep to right off Tom Candiotti for his sixth time off Candiotti alone. Number 28 on the year. The Pods lead it quickly, 1-0. Stadium, a twilight start. The final home game of the year for the Los Angeles Dodgers against the San Diego Padres. They fly out tonight. Bill Russell's team does 4 at Colorado. Billy Russell has come under the scrutiny, obviously, and his team has fallen out of first place this last week. And here's his Nextel Dodger lineup. Otis Nixon leads it off in center field. Eric Young, second base, hitting second. MVP candidate Mike Pepperoni Piazza is the catcher. Eric Charismatic is the first baseman. His next RBI will give him 100. Raul Mondesi is in right field, hitting fifth. Todd Good Housekeeping Zeal. A couple of home runs last night in the Dodgers 6-2 win over the Padres, is hitting sixth. Darren Lewis, left field, hitting seventh. Greg Gagne with a spoon, your shortstop, hitting eighth. Candiotti hitting ninth. Against the big right-handed fireballer for the San Diego Padres, Joey Hamilton.
And Hamilton has a good fastball, curveball, slider, and a change. And he said because most of the Dodger sluggers are right-handed, you will see a lot of curveballs from him in tonight's ball game. The 68 base on balls, that's one every 3 innings, almost, a little less than that, actually. So that's a problem for him. But when he throws strikes, he's very effective. Good sinker, too.
Starts Otis Nixon off with ball 1. Just tuning in, the Giants won at Colorado 4-3. Run of the 8th, run of the 9th, and Brian Johnson's home run. They left their calling card last night with that 3 spot in the 9th inning, although they lost 7-6. Kind of came back and figured we'd do it a little inning earlier this time and get it going. And boy, Brian Johnson, what a pickup he has been. Just a little bit on the Giants. All the trades they made, starting with the Matt Williams trade, and the big trade with the White Sox, the count is 2-1 to Nixon. Fastball outside. And the other deals that they made, picking up pitchers, they kind of snuck that one through. Brian Johnson for Marcus Jensen, trade with Detroit in July. And it's not often, Joe, that you pick up a team that potentially could win the division. You pick up a starting catcher in July. Not often. Vin Scully, talked to him earlier. I asked if he could remember a time when that happened without injury. He said, I cannot remember a time that happened.
Well, you also mentioned the Dodgers picking up Nixon, Eric Young, and Darren Lewis. And I believe without those acquisitions, the race would already be over. Because I think that these guys have really won quite a few ball games for the Dodgers since they've been here. Because the Dodgers being basically a right-handed hitting team, they have trouble with a lot of tough right-handed pitchers. Now with these guys, they steal a few bases and they manufacture some runs for them. There's Fred Clare, who's the general manager of the Dodgers, who made these trades.
Chops to Caminiti. Across the diamond is Joyner. The fleet-footed Nixon is out. 1 down in the Dodger first.
And let's take a look at the defense behind Hamilton. We just saw Caminiti there at third, but Tony Gwynn in right field. He's won 5 Gold Gloves and about to win his 8th batting title. I mean, he is a special player, and he's had one of the greatest years ever offensively. He hasn't been as good defensively as he has been in the past, but I think that's because he's had a few injuries to his legs. He doesn't run quite as well, but just a great player.
Eric Young fouls the first pitch back. By the way, Harry Wendelstedt umpiring behind the plate tonight. Randy Marsh at first, Larry Poncino at second. Jeff Kellogg. Special K down there is the third. Ooh, that hit him. Hamilton came inside and plunked him.
Well, I like what Eric Young is doing. He's running on down to first base. Hamilton just did him a favor, so to speak. I mean, he hits him. You don't want to get hit. But at this point of the season, you take first base, get on any way you can, because your team is trailing the Giants. They've already won. You have to win tonight's ball game. You're already trailing 1-0. And now you get one of your speedsters on base with their best hitter coming up.
Another big round of applause for Mike Piazza. Young, you see on first. Piazza checks the signs, although it's just to see if he's going right away, although Young probably has the green light. Young with 45 stolen bases last year, where the Rockies won the National League stolen base title. Young in the second hole. He's led off and hit second here for the Dodgers, Joe. With Piazza, with Young at second, Young on base, and Piazza up, when do you go? You don't want to take the bat out of his hands.
Well, I still believe that a base stealer's job is to help the hitter behind him. Now, sometimes you stay at first base so you get him more fastballs. Other times you steal second base right away so he has the full at bat in which to get a pitch to drive you in. So I believe in this situation you have to go as quickly as you can. You're already down 1-0, and you want to go as quickly as you can.
Hamilton keeping an eye on Young. By the way, Joey, when he hit Eric Young, hit his 11th batter.
He has a pretty tight motion to the plate. He doesn't have a high leg kick. I think you can get a good jump off of him, but you have to be pretty good at it. So he doesn't have that leg kick.
He has a leg kick. Back it goes to left, but not quite far enough. Sweeney hauls down Piazza's drive on the warning track. Young back to first. The crowd a little roar for a moment, but beaten down by the smog, that ball.
Well, the sound of it let me know that he didn't get all of it. There's a different sound there. It wasn't real solid. Let's see, and that's because he hit it toward the end of the bat. He knew it, too. Watch, you'll see that ball out toward the end of the bat, and that's why it didn't go out. See right there? He knows he just missed it right out there on the end. Good camera work there. Could see that ball right on the end of the bat. Home run swing, everything was there except he didn't get the meat of the bat on it.
That'll bring up Eric Karros, who homered last night along with Zeals, too. He had really been in a home run drought, although the home run now gives him 29. Zeals, too, gives him 29. Mondesi is 28. Piazza already over 30 with 37. The Dodgers could have 4 guys with 30 home runs to join the Rockies quartet, and the Rockies have done it 3 straight years. There goes Young. Good pitch to go on, although a fine throw by Flaherty. It looked like it was off speed a little bit, but Flaherty just guns down Young. We played 1-1 nothing Pods.
Flaherty makes a perfect throw. This is a tough pitch to throw on. He comes up and fires a strike to second base. But Hamilton has a tight motion, and he gets the ball to the plate pretty quickly. To steal off of Hamilton, you're going to have to get a bigger lead so that you can make up for that, the fact that he doesn't give you much time to run after he releases the ball.
7-8-9 for the Padres here in the second inning. John Flaherty, Chris Gomez, and the pitcher Joey Hamilton. Flaherty hitting at 275. Came over in a trade from Detroit last year. In the middle of the year, so the Padres actually, you know what? I answered my own question. Wait a minute, see if Piazza got him a little bit.
That's why it's so difficult to conceive what Piazza has done his last 3 years. I mean, he takes a lot of nicks. Watch this. This will get him as well. Gets him on the right side, just on the right arm. I mean, he takes a beating. All catchers do, not just Piazza, but all catchers over the course of the season, they take a beating. And you're always going up to the plate with something hurting you, and it becomes very difficult to hit.
Ripped down the left field line, but foul. You know, back to Piazza. He's not wearing that silver, you know, that armor that we talked about last week. He's back to the blue. Maybe he'll go back to the silver now.
Well, I heard that it's because they wear the silver on the road, and this is a home uniform.
Yeah,
so,
but he may have to think about it.
You're right.
Flaherty reaches out, and that will be out of reach. You know, I started to say, when can you remember a catcher coming? Well, essentially, Flaherty got the job last year, although Brian Johnson was on the Padres last year. They picked him up in the middle of the season, traded with Detroit in June. So, I guess that's the thing in the NL West. If you're not the Dodgers, they already have their catcher. Count is 1-2 to Flaherty. Home run by Finley in the first inning, and the Padres lead it 1-0. Candiotti turned 40 on August the 31st. But, you know, when you throw a knuckleball, Joe, I mean, it's not like, oh, man, he can pitch Satchel Paige. I mean, he could be Satchel Paige. He could pitch till maybe 44, 45, I guess, with this pitch.
Well, Phil Niekro did. And, you know, so as long as you can control the knuckleball, you have a chance to pitch. There has always been the theory on knuckleball pitchers. If you stay close to them, you can beat them down the stretch, because it is very difficult to control that knuckleball completely for 9 innings, and it's also difficult for the catcher to handle it. So somewhere along the way, you're going to get a bad bounce, a wild pitch, or something that aids your cause. So you just try to stay close to him, and you figure you're going to have a chance of beating him. And there's Steve Finley. He's already given him a chance to beat him by giving him a 1-0 lead here.
That's shot foul. Well, 2 outings ago, we mentioned the outing Candiotti had on Thursday in San Francisco. 2 outings ago at Houston on the 13th of September. In the first inning, he hit 3 batters, which ties a major league record. It's been done about 15 previous times. He also had 2 pass balls and 1 error in that first inning.
Right.
They asked Candiotti about it, Joe, and this was hit pretty well by Flaherty to center field, but Otis Nixon is there. Candiotti said, well, that tells you that why there aren't that many knuckleball pitchers around. Innings like that. Guy fires heat in the studio. Larry Beal. Larry?
All right, Boomer, we're on the McGuire watch, chasing 61. He's got 54 with 5 to play, including tonight. A drive off Dave Burba. It's high, it's deep. It's caught by Reggie Sanders. Cards lead 2-0. Let's go back to Boomer and Joe in L.A.
All right, Larry, thank you. Well, we, of course, will see McGuire with you, and later on our doubleheader, we'll get a chance to see Junior Griffey. Mariners, of course, are pretty giddy. They clinched last night. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to the Indians. Congratulations to the Marlins. My goodness, Joe, there were parties all over America last night. They all clinched.
And we weren't invited to any of them.
I can't believe that. Well, the short Gagne. Karros, 2 out. So that'll bring up the pitcher, Joey Hamilton, and we should point out that Hamilton has 3 lifetime home runs. One last year in one of those games in Mexico against the Mets, and he's hit 2 this year against the Dodgers. 1 off Hideo Nomo, 1 off Chan-Ho Park. So you talk about a Dodger killer. Although knuckleball from Candiotti is going to be a little different than Park or Nomo.
A little different. And for a lot of people who are really not familiar with a knuckleball, you'll be able to see the seams here. The reason a knuckleball is so difficult to hit is because not only does the hitter not know where it's going, neither do the pitcher. I mean, the pitcher throws the ball, and it's kind of a dead ball. The seam's not rotating any one way. So whichever way it tumbles when it gets to the plate, whichever way the seam tumbles, that takes the ball that way.
Look at Hamilton. Oh, but it's speared by Zeal. Across to Karros and a 1-2-3 inning for Candiotti. We head to the bottom of the second inning here at Chavez Ravine. Padres 1, the Dodgers nothing.
It's time.
Mark Clark has got it. They got Craig Biggio in a rundown now. Biggio could play linebacker for somebody. Get out of my way, Tyler Houston. Houston hangs on for the out. No score until right there. Brooks Ishnick with a drive that's high and deep, and Aloha solo shot off Chris Holt. 1-0 Cubs.
All right, Larry, thank you. Of course, the Pirates open. The Cubs can do some magic at Houston. Pirates playing the Mets tonight. Hoping the Mets are a little bit down that they were eliminated last night against Florida. As we begin the bottom of the second inning, Eric Karros, who was up when Young got thrown out, will start his at bat again. Karros, Mondesi, and Zeal. We told you Carroll's homered last night. It was his first in the month of September. Last home run had come August 31st until last night. So even though the Dodgers had some winning streaks, obviously, Joe, base hit for Carroll past a diving Gomez. Even though Dodgers have had winning streaks in September, and Carroll's, at least his power numbers have been way off.
Right fielder, number 43, Raul Mondesi.
The ooh is not booze there for Raul Mondesi. And here's where we stand. Giants winning today at Colorado, have tomorrow off, and then 3 home games against these Padres. Lead the Dodgers by 2 games, who fly tonight to Denver to play the next 4 days. 2 night games, 2 day games at Colorado. In the Central, the magic number is 2 for the Stros. They lead the Pirates by 3.5. They finish head-to-head in Houston. Slow ground ball, going to be tough to turn it. They cannot. Mondesi runs well. They got the sure out. Gomez to Shipley. So fielder's choice.
Well, there's really no reason to throw to first base on this. And actually, the shortstop does a great job of making sure. Now, watch. He doesn't try to hurry. Make sure that he gives a good second baseman a good throw. You can't turn that double play on Mondesi. He didn't even have to run. Unless it's a one-hopper, you're not going to have a chance with Mondesi. But they did it right. You make sure one, make sure you get the first one. Everybody did their job there.
So this is Todd Zeile, who had 2 home runs last night, giving him 29 for the season, 87 RBIs. Career high for him. As we talked about last week in that game at San Francisco. It's kind of been a career dream for him to play here in Los Angeles. Grew up in this area. His father had always saved the ticket stub from the first game ever here at Dodger Stadium when it opened up in 1962. Last year, we played much of the season in Philadelphia. Pitching coach with the Phillies was Johnny Padres. Padres started that first game ever here at Dodger Stadium. He brought the ticket stub and had Padres autograph it. So he says, boy, it took me long enough to get here in Dodger blue. He's had a pretty good season. He's been one of the spokesmen for this team and trying to fire it up here at late. Did so with his actions last night. Question, is it too late?
Well, he got off to a very slow start. He struggled around 230 most of the season. Then he got hot last month, and he's been doing very well since.
Count is 1-2 to Zeile. Mondesi at first. 1 out. Time called. Mondesi, for a big guy, can certainly run. You can see he's got the 32 steals and he's thrown out 15 times.
Well, the problem is getting a good jump off of Hamilton because, like I say, he has a tight, quick delivery to the plate.
Oh. And he's hit his second batter. That was real high and tight.
Well, you see the fastball in under the chin, and it gets him, I think, on his right arm. Oh, someplace. I couldn't see where it hit him, but it definitely hits him. Well, I guess his left arm. If you take a look at where Hamilton stands on the rubber, I think from that angle, sometimes it's difficult for him to get the fastball in on the right-hander because of the angle he's taking. And that, in my opinion, would kind of tell you why he's hit so many hitters throughout the year. He stands to the extreme first base side, which doesn't hurt him when he's throwing the ball away from right-handed hitters. But when he tries to run the ball in, I think it gets more tail on it, and the ball the angle just forces him to hit more hitters. See, right on the extreme first base side. That's on the first base side now, which is not normal for a right-handed pitcher throwing to a lot of right-handed hitters.
So 2 on now for Darren Lewis. Just 1 out. Dodgers trail at 1-0 here in the second, courtesy of Steve Finley's home run in the first inning. Ball 1 to Lewis. This is Martinson's coming back to the National League, coming over from the White Sox. 308 with the Dodgers. He certainly has done a good job in left. Kind of got that job when Todd Hollandsworth was back on the DL, and he's been in there, even though Hollandsworth is healthy and on the bench.
Hollandsworth has been a disappointment after his Rookie of the Year season of a year ago. They felt like he was going to be the left-handed hitter to break up all these right-handed hitters by adding some pop in the middle of that lineup. He wasn't able to do that. They sent him to the minor leagues, and the Dodgers have really struggled all year without having a left-handed bat, heavy bat in that lineup.
Now, Lewis has the count his way at 3-0. Do you green light him with 2 on?
No, I don't think so. Not Darren Lewis. If this was Mike Piazza, Eric Carroll, one of your big home run hitters, I would say yes. But Darren Lewis is not going to drive the ball out of the ballpark that often.
A little pirouette by Joey Hamilton. That's everybody booing, but he certainly knew what he was doing. 6'4", 230-pounder from Warner Robins, Georgia. Looks in and gets the corner, says Harry Wendell. At strike one. Bruce Bochy managed with you last year. Padres came from nowhere to win it. Back to the drawing board. Although, we'll talk about the Padres a little bit later on. Very quickly, I mean, this is a team that's going to finish in the basement. As come back here by Hamilton to make it count 3-2. They are.
Well, Hamilton doesn't have any problem getting the ball on the outside because of where he stands. He has a perfect angle to get the ball to the outside. As I said, watch how many times he gets the ball inside. He's not able to do that consistently because of where he stands on the rubber.
Foul back very quickly on the Pods, though. For a team that's going to finish in the basement, they're not that far off. I mean, they had things. I mean, they've got to make some changes, but it's not a typical, oh my goodness, if we don't make 5 changes, we have no chance next year. They don't feel that badly about themselves, at least when they look at their roster.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the point, but the point I feel is anytime you finish last, you got a lot of work to do. And they can think in their own terms that, well, if this would have happened, that would have happened, we would have been better, and that's probably true.
I'll tell you what, they almost had to get a whole new team after Lewis scattered the dugout with that ball.
Yeah, you may say, well, you know, if this guy wouldn't have been hurt, we got better this and that would have done better. That's true. But the fact still remains you finished last.
Yes.
And so, therefore, in my opinion, you can't approach it like you did this year with the same players, the same situation, and say we're going to be better next year.
But they got a lot to
build on. It doesn't happen like that. Yeah, you have to do something. It doesn't work that way.
I'm not saying they were pleased with their season.
No. I'm not. I'm just saying I understood your point.
Dodgers dancing on the base pass, and they dance up a base because Lewis draws a base on ball. So now Los Angeles has the bases loaded. So the number 8 hitter, Greg Gagne. Gagne, of course, has been playing with a big bruise in his arm, and he's been really having trouble making contact, Joe. 14 of his last 31 at-bats have been strikeouts. But Billy Russell, he's in there. He's hoping he finds a little lightning in the bottle because he does have some pop if he makes contact. But he's just been having trouble making contact, period, here in the last couple weeks.
Well, you're right, and he's hit very well against Hamilton. He's hit .429 against Hamilton. That's why I think he's in there tonight. But he's been having trouble with the ball away from him.
This one is just foul down the right field line. Well, there was some contact that could have got everybody running.
Let's see where this pitch is. He's been having trouble with the pitch away. That pitch is pretty much middle of the plate. And he tries to go the other way, which is a good way to try to put the ball in play, trying to make contact.
Hit to right field, going to be a base hit. Mondesi scores. Zeal is held up as Wynn comes up throwing. Gagne makes contact. It ties the game at 1. So Russell knew about his success against Hamilton, figured he's due.
Well, obviously, that's where statistics do help you as a manager make some proper decisions, because he has hit well against Hamilton, .429, and that's why he's in there tonight. He fights this ball off. As I said, he's going to right field, and this is the way to do it, to get out of a slump when you're not making contact. He fights it off, but this is another point to be made here. You only score 1 run on this play, and you have the pitcher coming up. If you're at second base, Zeal has to get a big enough lead where he can score on that base hit right there, or at least be in a position where you can score.
Candiani looks at a fastball, strike 1. Candiani on the season 0.97, so he is not a good hitting pitcher.
No, and that's one of the problems with the Dodgers had before they brought the other speed. They do not have any speed other than Nixon, Lewis, and Eric Young. And that's why you have to play station-to-station baseball like they just did here. And a lot of times you waste a lot of scoring opportunities.
Broken back. And they try to turn it. Oh, my goodness. They did it with a Statue of Liberty play at second base. And there was any possibility on a broken bat. But a turn double play by the Padres keeps the score tied at 1.
He's running down the pass. He's hustling. He's running all the way. He just can't get there in time. But I want to go back to what I said about the speed. If Zeal could have scored on the base hit to right field, Darren Lewis would have been third base, would have been first and third with 1 out. They could have bunted Candiotti. They would have had a run in, another run in, runner to second and third with Nixon hitting. Instead, you have Candiotti hitting in a tie ball game, and he hits into a double play. So the point I'm making is without speed, without running the bases well, it costs you a lot more than people realize. I mean, that cost them at least 1 run and possibly 3 runs on that one play.
Top of the 3rd inning now is the top of the order. Shipley, Finley, and Gwynn.
And one other point I want to make, you do not have to have speed to be a good base runner. You just have to know what you're able to do, get a good jump, and make sure you fight for the extra lead at second base when you're not as fast as some of the other players.
Joe, I described Shipley there as like a Statue of Liberty play in football. It was like waiting for somebody to take the ball out of his hand, or like a quarterback that they have around the ankle, but he's standing in the pocket and he still dumps it off.
I think your first one was more accurate.
Okay.
It was a Statue of Liberty. I mean, when you described it, I mean, that's what it looked like. I agree. I mean, it looked just like a Statue of Liberty play, waiting for somebody to come by and grab it.
I thought he was posing, for the shot tomorrow in the paper. Craig Shipley attempts to turn double play ball, was the caption. But he did turn it. 0-2 pitch. Low and away.
And I want to make sure I'm not, necessarily picking on Zeal. I'm talking about when you have a lack of speed that causes other things to happen. And over 162 games, those things show up more often than you realize.
Gets under this one. Straightaway center field is Otis Nixon. And there's 1 out. Here's Steve Finley, who hit his 6th career home run off Tom Candiotti, a long home run to right in the 1st inning. Now, here's what we spoke about. Finley, 353 with the 6 dingers. Gwynn, 419 with his base hit. Caminiti, 378 with his base hit. Joyner, 341. Those are pretty formidable numbers right there.
And they're not just numbers. They're numbers that have been accumulated over a lot of at-bats. See, I don't believe you can use statistics to tell how well a guy hits against a pitcher until you have at least 20 at-bats. That's basically like 5 games. And in those 5 games, he has a chance to figure out how to pitch you, and you have a chance to figure out how to adjust to him. So after 20 at-bats, I think you do get a pattern of how a hitter hits against a pitcher, or how a pitcher is going to be able to get a hitter out.
1-1 pitch to Finley. Slower than usual, but Finley just sits on it again. And he's aboard. Right, Steve Finley continues the assault. He just waited because that pitch was among the slowest that Candiotti has thrown tonight.
Well, this comes under the heading that he sees the ball very well out of Candiotti's hands. See, he's on balance completely there. And, I mean, he doesn't have to shorten his swing or anything. He takes a full, level, line drive swing. I mean, that means he's seeing the ball very quickly out of Candiotti's hand, and that happens at a lot of times. Certain pitchers' motion, you pick the ball up quicker than you do others. People you struggle against, you don't see the ball quite as quickly.
Tony Gwynn, base hit in the 1st inning, makes him 374 for the season. Swings through it. I talked with Tony about hitting against Candiotti. He said, yeah, I think I hit him pretty well, and he knew he hit him pretty well. But he said, I didn't earlier in my career, but I've learned to really just sit and wait. And we should also point out, he said when he first came up that he tied his career best with 218 hits. And now, of course, has amassed another.
Well, Tony Gwynn is a guy that stands in the front half of the batter's box anyway, so you're not going to get fooled as much by the speed and the break as some of the other hitters because he hits in front of the plate. If you watch where he hits, he steps in front of the plate, and therefore he's cutting down some of the break on the ball, whether it be a break curve ball or slider. See where he is? Now watch when he strides, he'll hit the ball. Everything he hits is in front of the plate. The other reason that helps him to hit 370, 350, whatever, is because his bat is always in fair territory. You will not see Tony Gwynn pull a lot of balls foul down the right field line, because if you keep your bat in fair territory all the time, you get better bat angles. The angles on the field are much better.
Fouls this one away. You know what I enjoyed reading, and I saw that over the weekend, Gwynn passed the Hawk, Andre Dawson, to go into 38th place lifetime on the hit list. He's passed 28 players this year on the all-time hit list, including 16 Hall of Famers. 16 Hall of Famers he passed in 1 year. One of them being Ted Williams, one of them being Lou Gehrig, one of them being Jimmy Fox, one of them being Ernie Banks, one of them being Reggie Jackson. I mean, this is not just any list.
Well, let's put it this way. He's a Hall of Famer
Yes,
himself.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Reaches out and hits it to third. That's Zeal to Young. Not in time to Caro, so fielder's choice. Finley is erased. 2 down. You know what Tony also said? He mentioned talking to you tonight. He said, well, the thing is, I'm not really... I said, are you aware of history where you are here with 8 batting titles potentially and maybe 4 in a row? Yes, I am. I said, are you aware of the names? He goes, well, I'm not as good a player as those other players. And he means that, though. He's not being polite.
Yeah,
you know that.
no.
Well, there you go. I mean, if he wins his 8th, only Ty Cobb will have won more. A pretty impressive list. Hornsby, the greatest hitters there. He said, Musial and Ted Williams. I mean, he said, I'm not as good a hitter as those guys.
I think all players have some of those great players in awe, and they think of them as being superhuman, and you only think of yourself as being mortal, and I think that's what Tony's talking about. But I mean, a lot of people lately have said Tony Gwynn may be the best hitter ever. Of course, Ted Williams had more power with his average, and so did Hornsby, Ty Cobb. I mean, I guess it is an interesting concept. I mean, I think a lot of times we have a tendency to underrate the players who play today when we compare them to the players who played in the past, like the Ted Williamses and Ty Cobbs and so forth and so on. It was a different game then, and I don't really think you can compare players from one era to an era like 4 eras ago. I don't think you can do that because the game has changed so much. The equipment has changed. Everything has changed.
Trino pitched to Caminiti, and he walks it. So Gwynn to second, Caminiti to first, and that'll bring up Wally Joyner.
But I don't think there's any doubt, Chris, that Tony Gwynn would have been a great hitter if he played when Ted Williams played, and Ted Williams would be a great hitter today. All those great hitters, I don't think there's anything that, changes that. They could hit in any time they played. Tony Gwynn could go back to the 1910s or 20s and whatever, and he'd still be a great hitter.
No question, Joe. A big situation for Candiotti with 2 out but 2 aboard in a 1-1 game. Wally Joyner flew out to left field his first time up. Joyner's had a fine season for the Pods when he's been healthy. 82 RBIs, missing a bunch of games, and as they did last year, well, they obviously rebounded. When he was hurt, the team went into a tailspin. They were 333, but skies it. And Zeal is there. So of all the guys that have touched Candiotti, Joyner has not come through, and Wally twice has stranded a couple of runners in both of his at-bats.
Central still yet to be decided. A Houston win and a Pirate loss would give the Astros the crown, but the Pirates won't cooperate. Joe Aranda with a base hit to score Tony Womack, and the Bucks lead the Mets 1-0 in the 4th. Back to Boomer and Joe.
All right, Larry, thank you. So, boy, the Pirates, here they are below 500, but what a wonderful story the Pittsburgh Pirates have been. Kevin McClatchy, the owner, right down to all the guys on the team. Kevin Young coming back and immediately getting those home runs. Pick up Dunston. Of course, Gene Lamont has been a great job. It's been a great story. Nixon, Young, and Piazza. Otis reaches out and hits this one to center field. Finley there. Steve makes the catch, and there's 1 up and 1 down. After we're done here, we'll go up to Seattle. The Mariners, of course, are already in as AL West champs, but there's this guy named Griffey who hits home runs. He's got 55. Will he hit more tonight? as the Mariners host the Anaheim Angels. And deja vu all over again last night, Joe, as Randy Johnson nailed the pennant down at home against the Angels. And just take a look at this. There's a reason this is up here, as Eric Young is there. Griffey with the 55 home runs. We'll put it up again here after he's fouled it back. Except for Roger Maris. We can get another look at it. Except for Roger Maris's 61 home runs in 1961. Everyone else who had 55 or more, which Griffey just got to until he did it in the 30s or before. So getting to 55 now, Joe, that's a little different area as Shipley throws over to Joyner and Young is gone. I mean, 54 was the stopping ground except for Maris until Griffey and maybe McGuire with 54 right now. Now you're in the top 7 all time.
Well, it goes back to what we were just talking about. How good is Ken Griffey Jr. compared to the other people we saw up there? Because all of those guys are Hall of Famers. All right, and so how good is he? You know, and pretty good. Yeah, that's the point. I mean, I think there has to be some concession to today's players saying that, you know, maybe they are as good, if not better, than the players of the past.
Mike Piazza swings at the first pitch, but skies this. Shipley going out, Gwynn coming in. Shipley calls for it. Makes the play in a 1-2-3 inning for Joey Hamilton on a 5-pitch inning. So we have played 3 here in Los Angeles. Knotted at 1.
Let's see. I dropped off Jason at soccer practice.
Los Angeles Dodgers, unless they catch the Giants in the West and host a game or 3 in the divisional series. The Dodgers have their work cut out for them. They're tied 1-1 here in the top of the 4th. They know the Giants have won. They're only 1 down in the loss column, and they do play tomorrow at Colorado while the Giants do not. So it's conceivable that if things go Los Angeles' way, they could be 1 down after tomorrow night with 3 to go.
So you can't panic yet, and that's why I say I think you'll find we'll get a better idea of what the Dodgers are all about and how they play this game tonight.
Mark Sweeney, John Flaherty, Chris Gomez, 6, 7, 8 against Tom Candiotti. Padres have 4 hits off Candiotti. Just the 1 run, courtesy of Finley's 28th home run of the first inning. Yeah, you notice the news of the Blue Jays fired Chino Gaston. That's been rumored ever since Paul Beeston went on to New York to work in the Major League Baseball offices. I don't know what direction they'll head in Toronto.
Well, I understand the new owners. Obviously, you know, they want to bring in their own people. I personally am a little bit disappointed in the fact that here's a guy that won 2 world championships for you. You did not give him the same players, or the players you brought in didn't perform like they were supposed to. Most of the guys they brought from the National League didn't do well this year. And I guess I look at a place like Minnesota where Tom Kelly, you know, they won a couple of pennants, but they've been down a lot of times, and I think rightfully so he wasn't fired or wasn't blamed for that. And I have to feel that it's unfair to Cito because he was never given the praise when they won, but yet he's given
the blame when they lose.
Exactly.
Nixon is there on a ball well hit by Mark Sweeney, but to dead center field, right at the edge of the track. Sweeney is gone. Yeah, it's not like they didn't have success under Cito.
Right.
And they won
4 division championships as well in 8 years and 2 world championships. So I don't know how many teams have done that well in the last 8 years.
Not many.
But I mean, I understand if you're a new team, new owner, you come in, maybe you want your own people. So that's neither here nor there. I guess the tale of the tape for me will be if he gets another job. Every other manager I know that's won championships and been fired have all moved on to another job.
Well, he certainly deserved it.
Exactly. I guess that's the point I'm making. We'll see what happens.
In there for a strike, 1-1 to John Flaherty, who flew out to center field his first time up. Dodger crowd is quiet. Late arriving crowd, an unusual start time here at 5 o'clock. Of course, they're always quiet, and that's some of the columnists have gotten on them lately, although, I mean, it's not going to change things. You know, Piazza hit that ball over the pavilion in the game you did. They really, you know, they went loud applause, but If that was about 10 other places, they would have gone berserk. Not the style here.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, the Los Angeles fans are a little different than, you know, say the fans in St. Louis, or, you know, that's where the ball Piazza hit. Travel, it went over that area there, over the pavilion in left field.
They could travel to St. Louis. This one headed toward the gap. Mondesi is over, though, as it dives in there, and will hold him to a single. But Flaherty aboard with one out.
Shortstop, number 10, Chris Gomez.
You see the first base coach, Davey Lopes, coming into your picture there a little bit. And for a while there with batting practice, we had Davey Lopes, Billy Russell, and Ron Shea, who was on the field.
Yeah.
I said, gee, put uniforms on you guys. And maybe the Dodgers would be in a different predicament than staring up at the Giants. These guys could play. Rick Monday, a couple boots down.
And those three infielders, along with Steve Garvey, were the longest, you know, running infield in the history of baseball. They all played together. There's Reggie Smith. He was a member there sitting next to Bill Russell. But that infield played together longer than any other infield in the history of the Major League Baseball. Davey Lopes at second, Garvey at first, Ron Shea at third, and Russell at short.
Karros will have room. Makes the play. Gomez is gone. 2 outs. Flaherty obviously staying on first, and Hamilton coming up.
Pitcher, number 50, Joey.
Well, knuckleball pitchers can frustrate you because you think that you should be able to hit a ball that's not traveling 90 miles an hour. And you see, he also knows that Karros is not going to miss it, so he says, I'm out.
Joey Hamilton hit sharply to third base his first time up, grounding out to the side of the field. You know, the shot when we appear, and look, Mike Brito, you know, the man with the hat and the great color jacket. I kind of have to laugh. He's sitting there with the jugs gun on Candiotti. I mean, you know, give the guy a night off.
Well, he wants to, yeah, but he wants to know when he's losing his stuff, you know, when he goes from 58 miles an hour to 52.
That means he just got out of the passing lane and went to the right-hand lane in the road. Jacket, the hat, the cigar. Nobody outdresses Mike.
You're right about that. Every time I've seen him, he's always clean.
Tries to come in with a different pitch there.
I think a knuckleball pitcher's always more effective if he will throw, mix in a few fastballs, a few cutters, a few sliders, anything, just so that they can't sit and look for one pitch all the time.
Came back with that one. Hamilton not thrilled. He strikes out, gets the boos. But Joey goes up there thinking he's going to get a hit. Oh, we are moving down to the bottom of the 4th inning. Dodgers again. The hills of Chavez Ravine. Yeah, smog, little fog, a lot of heat. And the heat is on these Los Angeles Dodgers, who a week ago tonight, as they set foot in Candlestick Park, led the division by 2 games. Come in with a 3-game winning streak. The Giants had come in with a 4-game losing streak. Boy, did that change on a dime. Karros, Mondesi, and Zeal. Eric singled his first time up. Actually been to the plate now 3 times. He was standing there when Eric Young was thrown out attempting to steal to end the first inning. Then official at bat in the second, and now here we are at the lead off the 4th. So you were here over the weekend when the Dodgers played the Rockies.
Yes.
And that was the game, actually, they thought they were the big lead on Sunday, but what's missing all of a sudden? And, of course, a week ago, we would not have been having this discussion. Emotion? Emotion doesn't get you base hits.
No, I believe that the Dodgers are a team that they can't change their personality. By that, I mean, the good teams have a lot more, I guess, ups and downs, intensity, and they die a little bit more with the loss. A lot of people say you have to stay on an even keel. You can't stay on an even keel in a pennant race. I mean, you should be happy as anything if you win today. If you lose, you should be upset and deal with it.
3-2 pitch to Karros, hit well to center, but Finley is there, 1 out. We'll continue our thoughts in a moment. Larry Beal, pennant update.
All right, here we go. The Astros and the Cubs. Bases loaded for Houston. 2 down in the 4th. Who's going to come through? Ricky Gutierrez. Ground ball. Manny Alexander. The flip to second. Get the force. Get out of the jam. That made it 1-0 Cubs as they held on to the lead. And Tyler Houston with a drive off of Chris Holt. His second of the year. Comes at a good time. Not if you're rooting for the Astros, though. 2-0.
Well, the Astros trying to nail this thing down, but the Cubs have other ideas as Raul Mondesi steps up. You know, I'm going to give one little theory, and I want to get back to you. There's a guy we showed twice in those shots of the Dodger bench, Ramon Martinez. Ramon's always been quiet, but on this staff of very good pitchers, he was always their ace. And had losing streaks, of which they've had a lot of 4- and 5-game streaks. When he was on, before he got hurt, and certainly in other years, he wasn't automatic, but he would shut those things down. Cano Park, Joe, has become the best pitcher this year on the team, but he's not Ramon in his heyday, as Joey Hamilton just flushed out Mondesi right there. Do you think that's part of the problem?
Well, I think his leadership of the pitching staff is part of the problem, so we're saying the same thing.
Right, he got hurt for 2 months, so he's not the same guy.
Yeah, right. So I think he was more of a leader than people realize, and while he was gone, I think they've fallen into maybe some bad habits. There's 2 things to look at. First of all, you know, when Otis Nixon came over here, he came over here to speed and to help this ball club score runs. Last week he called a players only meeting and talked about what they had to do to win. My point is, where were all the other leaders of this ball club? If you have a guy that's only been here 3 weeks calling a meeting, that's good that he feels that he can help you. But the flip side of that is, why did it have to be him? Someone else that's been here the entire season should be more of a, like Brett Butler was a leader, and then Brett Butler was like that, but Brett has been in and out and away. When he was here, I thought they had a lot more leadership. But they have enough players on this ball club who have been in the big leagues long enough now to be leaders of this ball club. And I'm not sure if it's one doesn't want to step on the other's toes by, assuming that role, or what the problem is.
Base hit to the right side for Todd Zeile. So Zeile's been aboard both times tonight.
And let's look at the Giants on the other hand. The Giants are a team that brought in tons of new players. So who's the leader of the Giants? Dusty Baker's the leader of the Giants. And he's been cast in that role because they brought so many young guys in. Barry Bonds is the leader on the field by hitting home runs and driving in runs. But the leader of the ball club is Dusty Baker. And I don't think Bill Russell is actually the leader of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He is the manager, and I'm not saying he's not a good manager. I'm saying we're talking leadership. And some people may not understand what a leader is, and I hope I have time to get through this, is that a leader's not always the guy that drives in a winning run or the guy that strikes out the guy with the bases loaded. A leader is the guy that everybody on that team knows that he thinks of the team first and himself second.
Darren Lewis right to Craig Shipley, and Zeile is stranded. We've played 4 here in Los Angeles. Bill Russell's Dodgers tied with the Pods 1-1.
An update on the Pirates and the Mets. John Olerud at the plate. Base hit. Jose Guillen up with it. Alberto Castillo, we got a play at the plate. Watch him elude the tag. He is safe. 1-1 in the 5th.
All right, Larry, thank you. Boy, the Mets have had a great season, too, Joe, as we continue here in a 1-1 game here in the top of the 5th. The Padres and the Dodgers. Mets have come from way back. Pirates have had a wonderful season, which is not over yet. What the Giants have done in the National League West is simply unbelievable, because you look at their roster vis-a-vis the Dodgers roster and even maybe the Padres roster, and you say no chance. But remember what Dusty Baker told me the day before the season started? He came north from Arizona and said, Craig Shipley leads off against Tom Seaver. He says, I don't want to say how far we're going, we're a hell of a lot better than anybody gives us credit for. I already know that in March. He knew.
Well, someone told me at the end of April.
Ball hit Candiani a little bit. Gagne was there with a gun over to Karros. And there's one out. Shipley's gone. He's 0 for 3.
When I did the Astros game, they told me that the Giants were a much better team than people realized. They didn't make a lot of mistakes, but if you made any mistakes, they capitalized on them, and that's why they've, done as well as they have. And as you say, they brought in a lot of new players there.
You know who else told me that early? I had them early this year. Jimmy Leland, manager of Florida, who, oddly enough, is due to face the Giants or Dodgers. He said, I really like their team, Chris. I had Florida early in the year, so they're really
well. The team has
hustling teams.
There's no doubt the team has a lot of heart, and they play together well. But if you compare their roster or their lineup to the Dodgers lineup, you have to give the edge to the Dodgers.
Yes, you do.
On paper. But this game is played with attitude, and this game is played, with intensity. And I think the Giants right there raised their level so that they are equal with everyone else.
Derek Karros hoping the bubble has not burst for the Dodgers. Finley, of course, is 2 for 2 with a home run in the first inning. Single in the third. They've had strong months, San Francisco, from different guys, much like San Diego had. Of course, San Diego had their big players all play well last year. Finley gets under this one, had a big rip at it, but just skies it. Young is out. Mondesi in. Mondesi will call him off. Finley is gone. There are 2 outs. Here's Larry Beal.
Oh, Boomer, a Big Mac attack. Mark McGwire. Cards and Reds in the 5th. Off of Dave Burba, down the line and gone. Homer number 55. So McGwire is tied with Junior. 6 back of Maris with 4 games left after this one.
Wow, wow, wow. Here's that number 55 with Tony Gwynn coming up. So McGwire and Gwynn with 55 home runs, except for Roger Maris. No one has done that since before World War II.
I think the fact that they've both had good seasons together, I think it's helped both of them.
Yep.
I think, it's kept the focus from being completely on one or the other. And they've actually helped each other, even though they've been in different leagues for the last couple of months.
Well, we talked about that with Junior the first 2 days. We had Junior when he hit the 2 home runs in the first 2 at-bats of the season on our opening night. And we said, if you go hand in hand with McGwire, and little did we know that Tino was involved in that for a while, it's like a horse that's not just running against time, it's running against competition.
And both of them want to lead the major leagues in home runs. And that is, that's something that's important, I believe.
We'll see Junior's attempts next after we get done here. The Angels and Mariners from the Kingdom. 2-2 pitch to Tony Gwynn.
One of the questions is how much will Junior play the remainder of the season, because they have to get ready for the playoffs, and he's played a lot of games. Will he take some time off and maybe just DH?
Well, that's possible.
Or will he continue to play in the field?
That's possible. Tony is 1 for 2 tonight. Gagne can't grab it. Tony is 2 for 3.
Now, I've seen Tony Gwynn before down the stretch of a batting race, and like a true thoroughbred, he can see the finish line and he knows how to get there. Larry Walker's, forced him most of the season, but Tony Gwynn is just a pure hitter, knows how to hit. Gagne almost comes up with this, but he hits off the edge of his glove, and Gwynn has another base hit.
Well, what was that great race? I think it was with Will Clark in '89, wasn't it? That they came down to the last.
I was there broadcasting the Giants thing, so I saw most of it.
So here's Ken Caminiti. Hits this one to left center field. Back it goes. Back, gone! We told you the big boppers for San Diego had really done well lifetime against Candiani, and we don't lie. Ken Caminiti with home run number 26 on the season. 89 RBIs now. So Finley has gone deep. Caminiti has gone deep. 3-1 Padres.
That knuckleball didn't do much of anything. It just sort of slid away from him right out over the middle of the plate. And Candiotti knows what to do with it when you make a mistake like that.
So Finley 2 for 3, Gwynn 2 for 3, Caminiti 2 for 2 against Candiotti tonight. The only one of the big four who has done well against him lifetime, who has not yet delivered, is Wally Joyner, who was up with the count. He is 0 for 2 tonight. Count is 2-0 to Wally. And little action in the bullpen. Dennis Reyes, the left-hander throwing, who earlier this year became the first lefty to start a game for the Dodgers in 5 years, since Bobby Ojeda started in September 1992. And Joyner draws a base on ball. So if you look at these guys, 2 for 3, 2 for 3. Caminiti been on base all 3 times, and now Joyner 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times the big four have been on base already for the Padres. And the Dodgers are not only staring a deficit in the face, 3-1, but staring up at the Giants. And they can ill afford in their last home game of the season to fall 2 back in the loss column.
When we were in San Francisco last week, the first game of the Dodgers series, Dusty Baker said, this is not a must-win. It's a we want to and we need to win, but not a must-win. Because if you say it's a must-win and you lose, that means you're out of it. So the Dodgers are facing a must-win, in my opinion. If they lose this ball game and fall 2.5, 2 in the loss column, and have to go to Colorado, it's just a difficult task in front of them. I think they realize that.
No, they will. In there for a strike to Mark Sweeney, 2-1. You know, one thing about the Padres is they played the Giants last weekend. They played the Rockies before that. They played the Dodgers now. They played the Giants over the weekend. They said, you know, we're out of it. But for guys like Caminiti and a #1 starter like Hamilton, said at least the games are meaningful for us down the stretch. Not so much for us, and that we're playing all the contenders. And we're going to play all our regular guys. We're not looking at next year. We're staying sharp even though we're out of the race. And they're playing sharp tonight.
It gives them a little extra incentive to play for.
Second string. Wow, all this happened with 2 outs. Single by Gwynn, homer Caminiti, walk Joyner, walk Sweeney. And Dave Wallace, the pitching coach from Waterbury, Connecticut, will roll out to the mound.
Chris, we're being watched in Dublin, Ireland tonight.
We are.
Yeah.
Except it's this morning, isn't it?
Well,
or tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning,
yes.
You're right. And the Dodgers are actually building a facility there, the first baseball field ever in Ireland, but they say they watch ESPN all the time there on Wednesday night and Sunday night baseball. So, well, people in Ireland, hello there, Dublin, Ireland to be exact.
I like it.
Yeah. And maybe we'll go there and play on that field one day. Me and you, their field of dreams.
Well, I think maybe the Dodgers are hoping that the fans in Dublin will send them a 4-leaf clover at this point.
At this
because
point.
they need some help. Always amazed to see where we are being watched. Ripped by Flaherty to left field. Coming on as Lewis makes the catch. So 2 more stranded by the Pods, but Candiotti surrenders the 2-run shot to Ken Caminiti. Long ball for San Diego has made long faces for Los Angeles. Back at Dodger Stadium, that man's home run is 26. Ken Caminiti has given the Padres a 3-1 lead over the Los Angeles Dodgers, much to the chagrin of Tom Candiotti. He picked up his stuff, and
well, that means that he's going to be pinch hit for
that's
here.
Correct.
He is the second hitter here in the 5th inning, so they're going to pinch hit for him, and I can understand that. You're down 3-1, and you cannot afford to go into the late innings trailing. The longer you go trailing, the more pressure it builds up. So you have to try to get right back in this ball game this inning if you can.
That's Eric Little Anthony. They hope that he can be imperial as he pinch hits for Candiotti. Gagne is up. Greg drove in the lone Dodger run in the second inning with a base hit to right field. Driving in Raul Mondesi. 3-run, 7-hit San Diego. 1-run, 3 hits the Dodgers. Joey Hamilton. His last year was 15-9. Was the Game 1 starter for the Padres in the postseason. 3-game sweep that they had at the hands of St. Louis. Pitched pretty well in that opening game, but Gaetti hit a home run, a 3-run homer early. That was that great first game that ended with Gwynn batting against Dennis Eckersley, which the ex-retired Tony Gwynn on a comebacker. This year, Joey is 10-7, but his ERA at 4.39 is really very similar to that 15-9 season he had at 4.17. He's on the verge of becoming a big-time pitcher, I think, Joe. He hasn't quite gotten there yet. I'm not knocking what he's done, but you agree, I mean, he has potential to step up a notch.
Well, when I think of Joey Hamilton, I already think of him as one of the, better pitchers in the league.
So across the diamond from Caminiti to Joyner, and Gagne is out. I agree with that. I just mean a big-time winner, a consistent 15-game winner. Well, now we have a change, and here's the ovation. Anthony will sit down and look at the fans. Perhaps his last at-bat ever at Dodger Stadium. What a heartwarming story this is. His battle back from throat cancer last year. Other injuries really related to it. Kept his faith. Had faith more than the rest of us combined. Just even put on a uniform and play and contribute. And really until he went into a slump here the last month, he kind of feels a little empty that he hasn't been able to contribute enough in September, but I don't think anybody in this crowd says, where have you been in September?
We got a shot of Tommy Lasorda there and Rod Dedeaux, the legendary USC coach. And the toughest part is for Brett Butler to have to hit after this ovation. And he acknowledges the fans, but now the difficult part starts. It's very difficult to hit with those types of emotions going through your mind at this time.
40 years of age in his 17th season. Swings at the first pitch. Gomez will fire it across, but he'll get another ovation going back to the dugout. He said that when that happened Sunday night, he wasn't prepared. He didn't know what to do to step out, and they were down at the time when he pinch hit. You see his numbers. Would always lead in bunts for singles, sacrifice bunts.
Well, I think they miss his leadership more than anything else on this ball club.
The last Giants team that went to the World Series in '89. Of course, for years before that, Cleveland came up with Atlanta and was a member of the Braves pennant-winning team in 1982. And that's a long time ago. A lot going through his mind. Last at bat here at Dodger Stadium as Otis Nixon to center field. He's gone. What a heartwarming moment. Brett Butler stepped to the plate. He'll remember these moments for the rest of his life. We'll be back. Top of the 6th inning. Padres lead the Dodgers 3-1, and the Dodgers have a new pitcher, left-hander Dennis Reyes. And he will face the bottom of the San Diego lineup. Gomez, Hamilton, and Shipley, who's the leadoff hitter. Told you before, a rarity. Reyes will start as a left-hander for the Dodgers. Ball's behind Chris Gomez. 2-1. Gomez came over in that trade from Detroit with Flaherty last year, so shortstop and a catcher in that midseason deal a year ago. Reyes trying to keep the Dodgers in this. Their bullpen on paper has been very strong in stats, but really inconsistent as he issues a leadoff walk. Well, before the game, we talked to Brett Butler, Joe, about, well, what if you got up one more time here as a pinch hitter? Here's his response.
You don't anticipate those things. You just get ready to play, and if you're called upon, fine. And if the fans react to that, well, it's, again, it'll be a special moment. But I've sat here this afternoon just kind of looking at Dodger Stadium thinking, golly, this could be the last time I'm in this park as a player, and it's bittersweet. I'm going to miss it a great deal. I love the game of baseball as a player. But I'm looking forward to going home and spending time with my family, too.
Now, Evelyn and the kids down in Georgia. Laying down the bunt is Joey Hamilton. Reyes will play it on to Young, covering first base. And Gomez down to second base. Now, he came to the park and comes to the park, Brett Butler, Joe, every day like an old timer. Right? And I mean that, not that like a Caminiti or a Piazza is not like that, but he was ready to get dirty, ready to hustle on every play, ready to run into the walls. That never changed, even though he's 40 years old at this point and is beating something a lot larger than trying to hit a curveball and throat cancer.
I think sometimes as the older you get, the more you appreciate this game and appreciate the things you have, and sometimes you work a little harder at them.
Fouled off by Craig Shipley. Well, we told you, Brett, all his track record. Atlanta, Cleveland, hit 304 times. 6 times scored 100 runs. Shipley trying to get this another insurance run home, but will not do it. Mondesi, and they're going to try on Mondesi's arm. The one-hop throw to Zeal, not in time. The fly ball was pretty deep to right field, but I wasn't sure that Gomez would give that a shot. He did. The gamble paid off fairly.
Well, Mondesi just has such a strong and accurate arm. Accuracy is more important than just the strength of his arm. But look at this. He gets rid of the ball very quickly and right on the money. They tried to decoy Shipley into thinking the throw wasn't coming in, but look at this. I mean, it's perfect. One hop right to Zeal.
So at 2 outs, a runner at third base, way outside is Reyes to Steve Finley.
And that almost answered your question about why you would try to get to third base with 2 outs. There are 9 different ways you can score from third base with 2 outs that you can't score from second. So you're always better off getting over to third if you can. But you never want to make the last out at third base or the first out.
In there for a strike. 1-1 for Steve Finley, who, of course, homered and singled off Tom Candiotti. This will be a little different situation. The Dodgers are hoping that Finley will go up the coast. He swings to that slider. Breaking ball way out the strike zone. By the time it got to Piazza's glove, it's 1-2. Finley has just tattooed the Giants also. The Dodgers said, well, you're doing this to us. Will you please continue this up the coast this weekend? Finley to swing through it, and Gomez is stranded at third base. So a potential big run that the Padres wanted to eke across. They could not do it. Part of the Dodger order coming up to the bottom of the sixth.
A win for Baltimore, and they lock up the AL East crown. Robbie Alomar hitting .500 over his last 15 games, a double to the wall and left. Brady Anderson heading on home. 5 runs in the 5th for the Birds. They now lead the Blue Jays 5-2 in the 7th.
All right, Larry, thank you. The situation here, the Dodgers trail the Padres 3-1 at the bottom of the 6th inning. Eric Young, Mike Piazza, and Eric Karros trying to solve the riddle that has been Joey Hamilton. Hamilton has pitched 5 and given up just 1 run on 3 hits. Young was hit by a pitch in the first, grounded to second base in the 3rd inning. In just a step on the grass is Caminiti at third base because Young obviously has wheels. Going to be crunch time, Joe, for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Back to Hamilton, makes the play himself. Over to Joyner, and there's 1 out.
Well, the later you get in the ball game, the more pressure builds on the Dodgers because, again, this is a must-win for the Dodgers if they want to keep their hopes alive.
Billy Russell looking for his big boppers to get bopping. You know, one of the amazing things about the Dodgers, you know, you have their big 4, Piazza, Karros, Mondesi, and Zeal, all of whom could have 30 home runs by the end of the season, Joe. Yet, last night was just the 2nd time since August 3rd that they had more than 2 home runs in a game. 2 by Zeal, 1 by Karros. And another note is that you would figure these 4 guys, they're going to have, you know, combinations in which Karros and Piazza hit home runs, Mondesi and Zeal hit home runs. Since August 1st, last night was only the 3rd time that 2 of that combination of 4 had hit homers in the same game. My point being is that it's a murderer's row, you would think, with all those home run figures. But yet they haven't all tattooed pitching at the same time and gotten red hot when the Dodgers need them here down the stretch.
Well, we've talked about this often. I mean, they're basically a right-handed hitting lineup. I mean, what happens is the pitcher may make 1 mistake, but he can also get in the groove and he can handle most of them. Piazza, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're right-handed, left-handed, or what. He's just a great hitter. But it does matter to Zeal and Karros.
Count is 2-2 to Michael. You would have thought that that would come up more. Those numbers would come up more in August and September. Shot. That ball had a hair on it. Pass to diving Shipley. Piazza's aboard for the first time tonight. And we're all excited here at ESPN for the 2nd straight year. ESPN will have the majority of the divisional playoff games. And that begins Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock with a 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock double dip. And then a 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock double dip on Wednesday. And so we go. The majority of the divisional series right here on ESPN. That's certainly been here a long time. It's certainly one of my personal career highlights is being involved with that. Last year.
The playoffs are always special.
Eric Karros 1 for 2. Single in the 2nd inning. Fly ball to center field in the 4th. First September home run last night. Be a good time for him to think about another one. I think it's a pretty even matchup. We talk playoffs here as the next half inning because the Dodgers want to get in this thing and they need their big guns to do some hitting. Hamilton's already plunked 2 guys and came inside with a fastball. But he obviously has his good stuff tonight, Joe, as we look at this delivery again.
Well, see, the angle he takes to get the ball inside on the right-hander, he stands on the first base side, and when he throws it, see how the ball really runs away? That's because he's trying to get his arm in a position so that he can hit the inside corner. But the ball really runs from the angle that he throws it because he steps from the first base side toward the third base side a little bit, and it's almost impossible to run that ball in on the inside corner often. You can run it inside, but to get the inside corner is difficult. See, he doesn't have any problem out there.
Yeah.
He can do that all day long. And a similar pitcher is Tom Glavine of the Braves. He stands way off to the third base side, and he has trouble sometimes running that ball in, I think, on left-handed hitters.
To the runner at first base, 2-2 count to Karros. Slug down the left field line. Sweeney is over. Piazza will halt at second base, and the Dodgers have 2 on with 1 out for Raul Mondesi.
See where this pitch ends up. Well, it's a hanging breaking ball, and Karros rips it to left field. He's lucky Karros didn't hit that ball out of the ballpark, and it could have been because he had 2 strikes. He was just trying to put it in play. But that was not a good pitch from Hamilton. Maybe the worst pitch he's made the entire ball game, because he has been able to keep the ball down and away from most of these right-handed hitters.
But Hamilton had given up just the 3 hits and the 1 run in the first 5 innings. Now he's been touched for a pair of singles. And here comes Mondesi. 0 for 2, but was aboard on a fielder's choice. And again inside is Hamilton. Did he go?
Yeah, Hamilton just wants to know, well, did he swing or not?
I don't care that the crowd's on me for dumping one of their sluggers.
There it is, that fastball. It really tails in, and that's a big advantage that he has, because right-handers, you want to keep them honest inside so that they will not be going out on the outside part of the plate to get your best pitch, which is his fastball, his sinker away, and his slider away.
Mondesi with 28 home runs. Digs in against Hamilton. Bruce Bochy keeping an eye on Hamilton. Doesn't want to hang another one of those pitches that he did to Karros to Mondesi. It'll be homer number 29. Mondesi already has over 30 stolen bases. He'd be the first 30-30 player ever for the Dodgers. At second, Karros at first. 3-1 San Diego. Fastball down and in. 2-1. Giants have won. Home run Brian Johnson, the 9th inning at Colorado this afternoon. Dodgers need to win to stay within 1 in the loss column and within a game and a half of the Giants. If you'll excuse me, swing in the batter's box, so foul ball, 2-2.
Well, it's a fastball that starts over the middle of the plate, and see how it runs in. Mondesi couldn't do anything about it. I mean, he was really tied up on that pitch. Excellent 2-strike pitch there from Hamilton.
Zeal at 2 homers last night. Been aboard both times tonight. He's on deck. Did he go?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Wow, he digged some good pitches to Mondesi there. Really tied him up on the second strike and tied him up on that one. Big strikeout for Hamilton, 2 outs.
Straight sinker here. Look at this ball. I mean, it just dives down, and Mondesi could not check his swing. It's an excellent pitch there. Great pitching to Mondesi there. Mondesi did not have one good swing in that at bat.
Well, he struck Mondesi out twice tonight. And that's the 2 strikeouts that he has. Starts Zeal off with the ball. Big guy with those pitches, you would think the strikeout totals would be 6, 7, or 8, but Mondesi's the only guy that he's gotten.
Well, the reason he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts is because he throws a sinker. That's a sinking fastball. You can make contact with it. You're not going to drive it, but you can make contact with it. The guys that get a lot of strikeouts are the ones that throw the high fastball, the riding fastball. because it gets there so quickly.
Hitter's pitch. 2-0 pitch to Zeal. Taking all the way, strike one.
He's had the ability to make good pitches when he gets in trouble. You see, career-wise, he's 5-1 against the Dodgers.
And at 5-1, 2-0 this year, 2-0 last year. 2-0 this year, also made a relief appearance against the Dodgers.
Well, he's made excellent pitches to both Zeal and Mondesi. Struck Mondesi out. He went away with Zeal on the 2-0 pitch, back inside 2-1. Now he tries to go away again.
Well, the count is full, which means Piazza will be moving from second. Karros will be moving from first. Dodgers trying to claw back in this thing. The crowd senses it a little bit. We'll do it again.
It looked like it really dropped down a little bit more, came a little more crossfire on Zeal there. Yeah, see how he drops down a little more sidearm, but he leaves it inside. The worst pitch in the world is a sidearm fastball is tailing in because the guy's bailing and the ball is following. You can expect him to get up back more on 3/4 and throw a fastball away or a slider away.
There's the old whirly bird again. And the runners will go back. He's thrown 25 pitches this inning, Joe. He's had a 5-pitch inning earlier in the game. Joey Hamilton is laboring, but pitched as well as he has in the last 8 or 9 starts. Fly ball off the fist to right field. Easy play for Tony Gwynn, and the Dodgers strand a pair. So after 2 are on, strikeout to Mondesi and a harmless fly ball by Zeal, Joey Hamilton came up with some big pitches. We have played 6 here at Chavez Ravine. Todd did not do that with Zeal. The little brother is trying to beat up on the big brother. Of course, last year, that final series, the Padres here at Dodger Stadium winning the 3, they both are going to the playoffs. But Padres winning the West, and the Dodgers settling for the wild card berth, although both teams were swept out of the playoffs. Tony Gwynn inside out, and it's away, out of play. Tony 2 for 3 tonight. Singled in the first, fielder's choice in the third, singled in the fifth. He's at 374. Although it'll fall a tad with a little chopper, Derek Young. So there is 1 out with Ken Caminiti coming up. And the last time he was up, he broke open a 1-1 tie. Sat on this knuckler from Tom Candiotti. Home run number 26. 2-run shot. And that's why the Padres lead it by the count of 3-1. Padres this year, we said they like to beat up on the Dodgers. I mean, the little brother, big brother syndrome. They're 6-5 against the Dodgers this season. 3-2 here in Los Angeles. Well, then the Dodgers turn into huge Padres fans as the Padres go to San Francisco over the weekend. It is amazing how you try and beat somebody, then pat them on the back on the way out of the stadium like, okay, guys, now let's get it together this weekend.
That's what sports is all about.
And for left-hander Reyes, we got him on the right side of the plate. And he pops up for 2 outs.
First baseman, number 22, Wally Joyner.
Wally Absorbine Joyner. 0 for 2 of the walk. That's a 48-foot fastball. A heck of a play.
Nice pickup by Piazza.
Glove save and a beauty. His hockey season is getting close to starting. Taylor inside. Boy, this Reyes, 6'3", 246 pounds, just 20 years of age.
That reminds you of Fernando, his body build. And Fernando was like 19 when he came to the Dodgers for the first time.
He's a little bigger up in the shoulders than Fernando. Signed by the same man, Mike Brito, the guy we're talking about behind the plate, discovered in Mexico. Joyner waves at that one. 2-2. Uh, 48-footer, 2 pitches, 3 feet inside. Misses the ball coming back to the mound. It's been a retired Gwynn and Caminetti. I guess we shouldn't get on him.
No.
This is an interesting at bat.
We'll have to give him a little respect.
Yep.
Retired Gwynn and Caminetti.
Breaking ball, and he fooled Joyner. Wow, that was an intriguing at bat. Well, 7th inning stretch time and nail-biting time for the Dodgers. They trail at 3-1.
The Peacemaker is a red-hot thriller, raves Rolling Stone. It ranks with the best of Bond.
Joey Hamilton and the Padres at 3-1, bottom of the 7th. This pitching summary brought to you by Sherwin-Williams Painted Wallpaper Stores. And Joey Hamilton's given up just the 1 run. RBI single by Gagne in the 2nd inning. Tom Candiotti started. He was touched for homers by Finley and a 2-run shot by Caminetti. And he stands to be on the losing end unless the Dodgers rally for them. Darren Lewis tries to bunt his way on the first pitch here from Joey Hamilton in the 7th inning. You know, we've talked about the stuff that Joey has had tonight, Joe. He's winless in his last 8 starts. When he won on August 6th, he was 10-3. But, you know, stuff like this, you wonder how that could happen.
It's amazing because he's throwing exceptionally well tonight, and he's conveniently wild. He's just wild enough to keep the right-handed hitters from going out there to get his pitches on the outer part of the plate.
1-1 to D. Lou, as they call him. Gagne on deck. Then a pinch hitter to the pitcher, Ray.
Well, Hamilton only has 1 complete game this season, so you don't figure that he's going to go 9. But if he can get them to the 9th, they have Trevor Hoffman, one of the better relief pitchers in all of baseball. So the Dodgers are quickly running out of time. They've got to do something with their next 6 outs.
That one missed. The count is 3-1 to Lewis, who has already been aboard once via base on balls from Hamilton. It was the only walk issued by Hamilton. So he's been well within the confines. He's just walked 1 and he's just struck out 2. The Dodgers feel it. And Todd Zeale's been quite outspoken. He says, we have to win all our games. Lewis. Tough play by Joyner and the flip over to Hamilton, and there is 1 out quickly to Larry Beal.
All right, Boomer, the Mets aren't going to the playoffs, and they're ruining Pirate hopes. Steve Cook plunks Carlos Mendoza with the bases loaded in the 6th to force a run in. Then Chris Peters hits Bernard Gilkey on the foot to make it 3-1 Mets, and then the big blow, the missile. John Olerud. What did that get out in a hurry? Grand slam, make it 7-1 New York.
Wow, that one looked like about 9 feet off the ground all the way out of there. Now there's the situation. The Pirates trying to pick up ground on the Stros. It doesn't look like they're going to do that. The Astros' magic number is 2. Hamilton with 101 pitches, so he can get through this inning. He can certainly go into the 8th because the middle relief has not been a strong suit this year for San Diego, although, as you mentioned, Hoffman has been very strong as the closer. But in the middle, they have Bachler the way that he's pitched, and that just has been a big difference from the team from last year. One to Greg Gagne. Gagne, some of our southern New England brethren. Ball over from Somerset, Massachusetts. Nice play made by his opposite, Chris Gomez. Gagne is gone. There are 2 outs. And that'll bring up the pinch hitter, Eric Anthony. Thought he was going to bat for 4. Though Russell changed his mind and pinch hit Butler in the 5th. And now Eric Anthony will bat for Reyes. Aaron Hall will be coming in to pitch the 8th inning. Magic number before. The Giants' magic number is 3 right now with their win today. Could be 2 if the Dodgers don't turn it around.
One other guy we should kind of compliment tonight, and that's Harry Wendelstedt behind the plate. He's done a great job. We haven't seen any arguments. Not very many. I haven't seen any disagreements. But I think Harry Wendelstedt has the proper temperament for an umpire. He's been around a long time. He'll listen to you, but he always controls the game. But he'll let you, you know, register a complaint. But he always goes forward. And as they say, the good umpire is a guy that you really do not notice. And we wouldn't have noticed it tonight because he's done such a good job. The players have not brought any notice to his calling. They felt like he's done a good job, and the pitchers as well.
He enjoys his job too.
That's exactly. Harry's one of my favorite people, and he's because of that. He loves his job, and he does a great job.
Hit by Anthony to right field. Gwynn coming on, makes the catch. So 1-2-3 inning for Joey Hamilton here in the 7th. We have played 7. The Padres 3, the Dodgers 1. 1-0 San Diego with the score tied 1-1 in the 5th. And a runner on Ken Caminiti, homer number 26. 3-1 San Diego, and that's where we stand because Joey Hamilton has made it stand up. As we move to the 8th inning here, it's the right-handed reliever, Darren Hall, the 3rd Dodger pitcher of the night.
And there's one alarming factor is he's given up more hits than innings pitched. And the 26 base on balls, that means he walks 1 every 2 innings. Not a good ratio. You want a ratio of strikeouts to balls. Bases on balls should be 2 strikeouts for every base on balls at least.
33 years of age from Marysville, Ohio, and you can see what the September ERAs look like compared to the rest of the season for both the starters and the relievers. So the supposed strong suit, pitching, has deserted the Dodgers here when they need it the most. Hall is trying to keep his team within 2. Mark Sweeney will lead it off. Sweeney leads the National League in pinch hits. Getting a rare start tonight, but he leads the majors with 21 pinch hits. 21 of 59 as a pinch hitter, 356. That'll open some eyes.
Well, that's excellent job.
Ground ball to 3rd base, which Zeal handles. So as a starter, he goes 0 for 3. You explain it. Let's go to Larry Beal.
All right, Boomer, the Cubs and the Astros in the 7th. Houston trying about to come back. Who do you go to? What's the go-to man? Jeff Bagwell singles home Biggio to make it a 2-1 game in the 8th.
Well, those 2 guys, Joe, Biggio and Bagwell, I mean, they play hard every night.
Well, the Astros are lucky that they have 2 players with that type of attitude.
Guy knows them pretty well is Ken Caminiti, Steve Finley. Teammates at Biggio and Bagwell in Houston before they came over in that big trade a couple of years ago. We watch John Flaherty. Ground ball to short. Gagne. Easy. Caros. 2 ground ball outs. Right, Darren Hall. Billy Russell. Bandage. Just a Band-Aid on his finger. He's been biting a nail too much. He's just looking for a little spark. First full year as manager. You know, in the papers, of course, things have changed in a week. A very poignant article in the LA Times this week saying the last 5 series, the last 5 big series the Dodgers have had, they've been swept in every one of them. They were swept in the 95 playoffs opening round by the Reds. They were swept by the Padres at the end of last season to lose the division, and instead they're a wild card team. They were swept by the Atlanta Braves in 3 games in the playoffs last year. They were swept in the 2-game set last week at Candlestick Park. And they were swept over the weekend by Colorado, trying to get back in it. Now, I mean, that's hard. That's not a 0-14 in those games.
Well, they definitely, had some poor series lately, but they've also played some good ones.
Yeah, they have.
In St. Louis, they came back a couple of times in the bottom, on the road from big deficits to win ball games. The Dodgers have talent. It's just I think they've gotten cold at the wrong time I guess is the easiest way to put it, or the most polite way to put it.
2-2 pitch to Gomez. A good inning for Darren Hall. A ground ball to every one of his infielders. That one handled by Eric Young. So we move to the bottom of the 8th inning. The Dodgers need a couple, and who better to provide it than the third man up, Mike Piazza.
Men, is gray hair sneaking up on you, right under your nose?
It is sneaking up on me. Here, too.
You need Just for Men gel. Brush in, and in 5 minutes...
They're just looking. They're grasping for just answers and some spark, and it just doesn't seem to be there, courtesy of Hamilton.
Well, I was going to say, Hamilton has had a lot to do with this. Hamilton has been able to contain them and keep the ball down and keep them in the ballpark. The Dodgers are a ball club that they seem to play much better when they do hit the ball out of the ballpark. And Hamilton has been able to keep them in the ballpark and keep them under control.
Crowd realizes it's pressure time here as the top of the order comes up. Otis Nixon, Eric Young, Mike Piazza. New left fielder in the game for San Diego is Chris Jones. He's gone in defensively for Mark Sweeney. Would have gotten in earlier. He's in on-deck circle when the lefty was pitching, but Sweeney never got up the bat. So now he gets a chance to contribute. And Hamilton is behind Otis Nixon 2-1. He's gotten Otis on a grounder to third and 2 fly balls to center field.
If you're the Dodgers, you have to say to yourself, if we can come back and win this game, it'll really change the Giants' perspective on this race.
Ground ball handled by Gomez at short, and there is 1 out. Here is tonight's game summary brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. And Joey Hamilton has been in the driver's seat. 7 1/3. Now he's given up just the 1 run on 5 hits. And of course the 2, 3, 4 hitters for San Diego: Finley, Gwynn, and Caminiti. Pair of homers, 3 RBIs, on base 8 times. They did their job against Tom Candiotti. Although a 3-1 lead is not safe by any means.
Not only that, Candiotti pitched well. Giving up 3 runs is not a bad job.
One and 1 to Eric Young. And Joey Hamilton looking for his first win since early August. Ground ball to short again. Gomez. Joyner. 2 outs.
This is what he's done so well. Keep the ball on the infield. Keep the ball in the ballpark. Get a lot of ground balls. And with his good sinker, that's what he's been able to do.
Mike Piazza to step to the plate. And if Piazza's handled, this could be the last out for Hamilton as Trevor Hoffman, the Padres stopper, is warm and ready to roll. Piazza 1 for 3 with a single in his last time up in the 6th inning. And looks down to no signs that Joey Amalfitano is going to give him here.
No.
I mean, they look to make it look good.
I don't think they have a home run sign, but that's what he wants him to do.
Well, you know, you wonder whether this is the last couple innings, the O'Malley ownership of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Last home game of the year. Peter O'Malley, 28 years as the president. Of course, Fox, Murdoch has implied that he would stay on, but I wonder what they're thinking at this point. His last home game, probably, barring postseason action. In some ways, we could be seeing the end of an era tonight, Joe.
Well, if he sells the team, you're definitely seeing the end of an era.
Even though they've indicated he and general manager Fred Claire would stay on. 1-1 pitch to Piazza. Fastball inside.
But as I mentioned earlier, O'Malley loves baseball, and I'm sure that's why he wants to stay in. And the fact that that's Walter O'Malley, Peter O'Malley, I'm sorry, on the left.
You've had a scoop as that was Walter O'Malley.
You're right. And he sent me a note, and he told me that they're building that first baseball field in Ireland. So he loves the game, and he wants to stay in it, and I'm sure he wants to help promote the game. But he has been, a great owner of the Dodger franchise. He moved here from Brooklyn.
40th year on the coast. Boy, Hamilton just froze Piazza at the plate. The second pitch strike was a buster down. Freezes him. The Dodgers down to 1 inning. The DH tonight. Joe, you predicted that he would be the DH for some of the games. Leadoff is an interesting slot by Lou. Well, here's what you need to know about this. The Dodgers in danger of falling 2.5 behind the San Francisco Giants, who won this afternoon at Colorado in exciting fashion on a 9th inning home run by Brian Johnson. Right now, as you know, the Dodgers 2 back, or they would fall 2 back in the loss column. They play tomorrow at Colorado. The Giants are idle. Time is running thin for manager Bill Russell, Eric Karros, and the rest of the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're hoping that Darren Hall can shut down the Padres here in the 9th. And then Karros, Mondesi, and Zeal can get something going. We saw that at bat by Brett Butler, a pinch hit in the 5th inning, and what a moment that was, Joe.
Yes. It's always a great moment when fans acknowledge the guy's career.
Trey Beeman came up with the Pirates organization as the pinch hitter in the pitcher spot. So certainly Joey Hamilton did more than his job. The sequence that he worked with Piazza, his last batter, was as impressive as we've seen all night.
Yeah, he was still very sharp against Piazza.
Ooh. Beeman almost takes Hall's head off with a base hit. We should remind you that we have an ESPN baseball special. As many games as are important to the various pennant races, certainly in the National League West. And both ESPN and ESPN2 will be involved. Perhaps Pittsburgh and Houston will loom large. Dodgers will be at Colorado. The Giants will be home to San Diego. Any or all of those games that matter, we'll bring it to you on Friday. And of course, the final day of the season, Sunday, perhaps.
All of them have to matter on Friday. Because even if the Dodgers lose tonight and lose tomorrow, they still would be only 3 out.
Yeah.
With 3 to go. So Friday's games have to be important.
Pittsburgh, Houston could be over or
Right.
could still matter at that time. Craig Shipley, 0 for 4.
Interesting. I thought he might bunt. They're trying to get that one more run that you talked about. They tried to get it earlier. And they're trying to sacrifice. Bruce Bochy is trying to get one more run here, so Hamilton or Trevor Hoffman will be able to finish it off. You can see Shipley drop the head of the bat. That's how you foul pitches off. You have to keep that bat still and level. Bat above the ball.
There goes the base runner. Beeman is in there. Shipley strikes out. Never striking out Larry Beal.
I try to make contact. Cubs and Astros. Sammy Sosa, he's trying to make contact. 2 on for the Cubs in the 8th. Billy Spires goes home. They get Lance Johnson as Brad Austin supplies the tag. So still a 2-1 game. Houston trying to lock up the Central for the Pirate loss.
All right, Larry, thank you. We'll keep our eyes on that game. And here is Steve Finley, who kept his eyes on the floater from Candiotti and homered in the 1st inning. Billy Russell going to the mound and has made the call to the bullpen. He's going to go left-hander. He's going to go Scott Radinsky to pitch to Steve Finley when we return.
The Phone Miser message.
Scrooge the phone company.
Phone Miser with your Windows.
Well, Dodger Stadium, but they know that if the Dodgers lose this game, they would have lost 7 of their last 8 at home. And that's not the kind of numbers you try to build on if you're trying to win the National League West. Scott Radinsky is going to try and keep Trey Beeman at second base and work to Steve Finley. 3-1. Padres over the Dodgers. Finley down the line. It's a fair ball. Beeman will round third and score. Finley into second base. 4-1 San Diego. Fair by about 6 inches, but definitely fair. Right over the bag.
Well, that's some of the things that happen to you when you're not playing well. You get some breaks that go against you, but the Dodgers have not been playing well, and that ball went right over the bag. Good pitch by Radinsky. He just jams Finley. Watch this. He jams him. Finley just inside outs it. He doesn't know where it's going, but he fights it off and right down the left field line for a double and an RBI.
So Finley with a single, double, and a home run tonight as Beeman waved around third by Tim Flannery. Now it's a 4-1 game. Tony Gwynn at the plate, and Finley in scoring position at second base. And he hits Tony with the first pitch. And we are seeing, Tony's a little upset with that one. Radinsky will come into you. It's one of the few times I've seen Tony show emotion like that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, a couple of the Dodger hitters have gone down tonight. And here's a fastball. This is definitely up and in. And he gets Tony Gwynn, but, you know, a couple of Dodger hitters have gone down. Mondesi, Carroll's, a couple of guys, Zeal. I mean, Hamilton has pitched off the plate inside a few times, and he's also hit a couple of hitters, a couple of batters. So
well, they seem to be coming apart at the seams at this moment. Wonder if the Giants have gotten back from Colorado yet and are watching at home.
Actually, I guess Piazza got hurt on that. It appeared that the ball hit Gwynn and then glanced off of Piazza's left hand.
How about one pitch KOing the batting champ and potential MVP with one pitch? Two different guys.
Well, watch the fastball that hit Gwynn, and then it ricochets off and gets Piazza. Right there, you can see his bare hand is exposed, and the ball gets him. And I guess Piazza's going to come out. You can see right there, it's a big bruise already. It's about to swell up. Not a good sign for the Dodgers. But this has been a game of a lot of bad signs for the Dodgers.
Tom Prince will come in to catch. Remember, Piazza made the last out, so you're probably not losing him in the batting order. But you better hope that you're not losing him for your remaining games in Colorado.
Well, that's why they're taking him out. They want to get some ice on it right away so it will not swell and cause him a problem if he's able to play tomorrow.
Well, Piazza taking a hard knock, and we got some hard knocks tomorrow night. 7:30, the weekend kickoff show starts your college football weekend early. Ordinarily, after that North Carolina State Wolfpack meet the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest. ACC battle in Greensboro. All the action brought to you by ESPN, your home for college football. So, I mean, you talk about a sign. Tom Goodnight Sweet Prince comes in as the catcher. You talk about a sign. There's Piazza. Here you're throwing inside to the best batter in baseball. And you're KOing your own catcher as you need him down the stretch. Ball by Finley just inside the bag. I wouldn't say that, I don't know if I was a stargazer or an astrologer, I would not say that the stars are in line at this moment in the ninth inning for the Dodgers. Of course, they'll have their at-bats. Here's a guy that can just about put it out of reach. It's 4-1 now, and Ken Caminiti has already hit a two-run homer tonight. He's up. Radinsky works him inside. Ball one. Caminiti home run, single, and a walk. So Finley, the number 3 batter with 3 hits, number 2 batter with 3 hits. Wynn with 2 hits and a hit by pitch, so he's been aboard 3 times. Caminiti been aboard 3 times. So 2, 3, and 4 have been aboard 9 times in this game. And Joey Hamilton says, "You're going to give me that much support, I'm going to make it work tonight." He stands to win for the first time since August 6th. Chopper, Zeal, Young, Karros, a very nice double play. So maybe one star got in line on that. Can the Dodgers come back? They scored 4 in the 9th before. Mondesi and company try to make it happen again. Your stadium. And is pinch hit in the 5th inning. Now Billy Russell and the Dodger bench hopeful they can get something going. They do have the heart of the order up against the closer for the San Diego Padres, Trevor Hoffman. Comeback win. He's tied for 19th, so in the lower half. Rallying from behind. Those 4 runs they had at St. Louis just going into the Giants series a week ago. We were talking about, oh, the Dodgers, they got everything going, so things can change, but it'll be tough to change it against a man with 36 saves, Trevor Hoffman.
And Hoffman has a good fastball, a good curveball. He can be overpowering. He's still got 107. Look at that, in 78 innings. That's, wow, a great ratio there, and only 22 bases on balls.
Eric Karros, Raul Mondesi, and Todd Zeal. The last hopes for the Dodgers before they go to Colorado for a 4-game set. The Giants split their 2-game set in Colorado, knocking the Rockies mathematically out of the race and putting the heat on the Dodgers. Heat to which they have not thus far responded. Karros homered last night, 2 for 3 tonight. Pair of singles. Off-speed pitch to Karros from Hoffman, ball 1. The Dodgers, who on June 30th were 8 games back, battled back to tie this race by the end of July. Never did overtake the Giants at that point, but had first place by a couple of games as they went to San Francisco a week ago tonight. They're in danger of falling 2.5 behind the suddenly resurgent Giants. And the Dodgers are staring at their 6th loss in last 7. Karros fouls it backward 2-2.
Hoffman had been throwing a lot of breaking balls to go with his overpowering fastball, and that's really tough on right-handed hitters because you have to sit on the fastball, look for the fastball, then he just turns the breaking ball loose and you almost have no chance.
Karros frozen by Hoffman. There's 1 out in the Dodger 9th.
This is a beautiful pitch. You see the catcher set up inside. Look at that. Right on the target. Doesn't move it at all. Perfect pitch from Hoffman.
With Mondesi coming up, this recaps what we're saying, Joe. At the end of June, an 8-game lead for the Dodgers tied up by the end of July. The Giants back up in the middle of August by 2.5, but at the end of August, the Dodgers had led by 2.5. The Giants reforged the lead September 12th. But going into that set at Candlestick last week, the Dodgers had led by 2. But in the span of a week, now we should say 8 days, into last Wednesday's games and this Wednesday's game, the Dodgers don't come from behind. It will be a 4.5-game swing in the standings. Mondesi swings and misses. He has struck out twice tonight. 9 straight Dodgers have been retired. No, Joey Hamilton was impressive, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. I mean, he had great command of his sinker, kept everything down and away with these right-handed hitters. There's that breaking ball I was talking about. He's been throwing a lot of them lately to the right-handed hitters. There's Hamilton. When I talked to him before the ball game, he said he was going to throw a lot of curveballs, but I don't think he did. He found that he had a better sinker than he anticipated when he got out there.
Skied in the infield. Gomez calling for it at short. And the Dodgers are down to their last out.
Third baseman, number 27, Todd.
Go to the Kingdome next for the Dodgers. Eyeing a long plane flight to Denver, and Fred Claire wondering, boy, it was going so well.
Well, you see he's still working. He's taking some notes.
Zeal 1 for 2 and a hit by pitch. Aaron Lewis on deck, although Todd Hollandsworth has come out into the on-deck circuit. Pitch. What? That one was behind him.
Well, that was for the fact that they hit Tony Gwynn. And there's no doubt in my mind that this is for, I don't think he really wanted to nail anybody, but he sends a message that we know you hit Tony intentionally, and I just want you to know that if you don't get out of the way, you get hit. Ooh. To be able to throw a ball behind the guy and the next one's on the outside edge, that's a little tough to handle, isn't it?
Yep.
That is tough to handle.
Larry sitting up outside again. The pitcher's inside, backhanded by Caminiti. Across to Wally Joyner. And the Los Angeles Dodgers have fallen 2.5 games behind the San Francisco Giants as the Padres come in. And behind Joey Hamilton, now 6-1 lifetime against the Dodgers. The Padres 4 and the Dodgers 1.
Well, I think that the Dodgers have really got their work cut out for them going to Colorado. I really believe that tonight's game is going to be their doom. It's tough to make up 2 games with 3 to go. 2.5 exactly when the Giants only have 3 to go.
Magic number for San Francisco is now 2. They'll play these Padres over the weekend at 3Com Park at Candlestick Point. For the Dodgers, they have to think of something on this plane ride to Colorado and get things going in a hurry and hope the Padres can help them. The final 4-1. San Diego over the Dodgers. For Joe Morgan, I'm Chris Berman. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the playoffs. It's been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, to Gary and Kevin in Seattle.